Hi everyone, and thanks to Jimmy L for pointing out that we were actually missing the footage from the Slaves to Darkness faction, the Idolaters. This was actually a weird one. It just simply didn't output in the final edit, and I've gone back and checked and there was some issues with the audio. So what I've done, rather than re-upload the entire review, I thought I'd release a quick 13-minute part 2 where you can see what we had to say about the Idolaters. Okay, next up, we're going to take a look at the Idolaters, and because we've all played with Slaves to Darkness at some point, well, mainly Jack, definitely Liam, and Luke's working on a new army, and I've kind of looked at the models, which I think counts. We're just going to talk through this as a group. The interesting departure, if you like, at this point is the Idolaters didn't really have any War Scroll updates, but what we did have was a whole new set of battle traits, command traits, and prayers, along with, of course, a battalion. So we're just going to pick through that and pick out our favourite bits. Okay, guys, looking at Idolaters, what we've got... Should we start again, Liam? Okay, guys, looking at the Idolaters, we have battle traits, command traits, and prayers. Luke, you're building an army right now. Has this had much of an impact on what you're trying to do with these guys?
Well, the army that I'm building is like a sub-faction from Wrath of the Everchosen, so it doesn't really change that list. But because the slaves is so large, you can kind of mix and match your models in, especially if you paint it like all like a standard kind of scheme. So yeah, I definitely would want to try and run a build that's in this.
Okay, cool.
I quite like the idea of this one. But to me, this is quite interesting because looking at it, it's kind of all about priests and the cultists, you know, all the sub-factions from what was it called, Warcry?
Yeah.
You know, they were all the cultist factions, weren't they? And in this you get so your cultists become battle line, and they also get the Marauder rule where the lowest dice roll on a charge is turned to a 6, which is an extremely powerful ability. So I kind of like the idea of having like a bunch of priests, and it's quite a diverse army because you can take a bit of everything from Warcry. You know, you want some Untamed Beasts and some Iron Golems and some, you know, whatever the other ones are called, they escape me now. And whilst it might not be the most effective army out there, I still think it's quite a fun army to do. All these different crazy cultists from around the place.
And it's a real converter's dream, isn't it? The idea of being able to upgrade a Chaos Chariot or a Gore Beast Chariot, you know, in your army, and it gains the Idolater, Lord keyword, Hero, and Priest keyword, you know, and makes it exalted. Yeah. There's so much fun to be had there in a converting point of view.
That's a conversion. And again, it's kind of that really cool, like, Knights of Old aesthetic. You've kind of got the knights on their beautiful chariots and steeds with kind of, you know, the peasant cultists just flailing around at their feet and stuff like that. Well, you know, the knights like to keep themselves nice and safe, just gorging through ranks with their chariots, and then they kind of let the disgusting little cultists over there deal with everything else.
Yeah, just to add to Jack on the Marauder charge thing for the Warcry bands, there's actually quite a few Warcry bands that are good, like Iron Golems. They reroll saves. You got Untamed Beasts that got a pre-game move. You've got the Splinter Fangs that do mortal wounds on the roll to hit. So you get a block of 30 of them, teleport them. They basically auto charge in, and they do a load of mortal wounds if you put reroll to hit prayer on them. It's not like it's just a fluffy. You could actually run this competitively, and the Warcry bands are decent, and they become battle line as well. So,
yeah, let's just go through how you get an Idolater force. Then, when you choose a Damned Legion keyword for a Slaves to Darkness army using the Damned Legion's battle trait in Slave to Darkness battle tome, you can choose Idolater's keyword instead of one of those listed. The allegiance abilities for Idolaters, Damned Legion, can be found on these pages. So essentially, I just wanted to say we started talking about Idolaters with actually saying how you go about creating an Idolaters one, but essentially this is an additional Legion keyword, isn't it? Simple as that.
Yeah, it's just like Wrath of the Everchosen. You have your slaves force like you would every other army. You could literally have the identical army and just fit it in all these different sub-factions.
And the kind of abilities we're seeing in the battle traits, add 1 to prayer rolls for Idolater priests. We've got Idolater cultist units in the battle line roll. In addition, you can make a charge roll of cultists if the charge roll is lowest dice is a 6. Change the lowest dice to a 6. I know Jack's covered that. You can upgrade the chariot, which I just briefly talked about. An Idolater Lord knows the prayer from Idolater's prayer table, which we'll cover shortly. You can destroy the false idols by, and that gives you add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by Idolater models that target a priest. Really like that. Desecrate, you can use this command ability in your hero phase. If you do so, pick 1 friendly Idolater unit that is wholly within 12 inch of an Idolater Lord and 3 inch of a terrain feature that is part of the enemy army. Roll a dice. If the roll is greater than the number of enemy models within 3 inch of the terrain feature is desecrated. Scenery rules for a desecrated terrain feature do not apply for the rest of the battle. It's one of my personal favourites, that one. The idea of actually being ruinous and going around ruining things is pretty cool.
Well, yeah, it seems quite powerful as well. If you can teleport behind and get onto an army's faction terrain and get rid of their faction terrain. And, you know, a lot of armies rely on that. Gloomspite Gits, with their ability to bring back grots in the Battleship community. You can desecrate that and get rid of it quite early on in the game, and it's quite a big thing.
Difficult.
Same as like the Bone Reaper one. They normally put that in the middle of the board, and you just
exactly.
Good night.
That in the middle, don't they? So if you've kind of got the Untamed Beasts, and like you were saying, they get that pre-game move, don't they? And then even so, the teleport, you can teleport a unit onto the Bone Reaper's scenery piece, desecrate it turn 1, and then they can no longer do anything from that.
You know, you've got to roll a dice in a greater number than enemy
unique.
models.
I mean, I know.
All I was saying there is it's not impossible to shield your terrain.
That's
but it can happen, you know.
Well, that's what we were saying with the Bone Reapers. It's especially potent because it has to go in the middle, doesn't it? Or
no, you can put it wherever you want, but it's best in the middle, so it makes them think about. It makes them think.
And if people aren't kind of thinking about, well, this is what, you know, the Idolaters do, then they're just going to stick it in the middle. But yeah, like for the scenery pieces that remain at the back of the board, then it's probably not going to be as good. But, you know, say even, you know, my personal hatred of volcanic terrain, even if there's like a volcanic terrain piece in the middle that keeps killing your stuff, then you can desecrate that and get rid of it.
Yeah, I think
the idea of you kicking a volcano, they just stops the volcano from working.
Yeah, just shoving like cornate symbols down there.
Liam, the voice of reason.
I think the thing is, though, what Luke touched on earlier is whilst, you know, these rules are quite situational, certainly in the context of a campaign, I think they're brilliant. Some of them are more competitive than others. You know, the Desecrate rule, like you say, has its role to play, but it's very easy to shield against. And as soon as you know your opponent, you can choose where you're going to put the terrain. You'd be foolish to sacrifice it quite quickly by having less than 6 models near your terrain, for instance. But it could happen. But in the context of a campaign, I think these are really fun little mechanics to play with. That's what I kind of like about the book as a whole, really.
I think, yeah, I can definitely see some really cool, like, little side missions that people do where you've got a couple of, like, you know, K-Knight temples or icons, and they've got to come in and you win the game if you manage to desecrate all of them and stuff like that. I think there's some interesting things you can do there.
Yeah.
And that's what they really strive for, that, don't they? They really strive to make sure the rules fit in the law, and they manage to still make quite a competitive game out of it at the same time. So it's a really hard thing to do, and they've definitely achieved that in this book so far.
I'm conscious of time, so what else do you guys want to pick out from the Idolaters? We've got command traits, we've got prayers. Is there anything that stood out for you guys?
Yeah, I mean the battalions, obviously, like I said, it's just a bit of fun, but yeah, the command traits and the prayers are pretty decent. I mean, most of the prayers you've already got on the war shrine itself, but there's a undivided one there, which is a heal one, and you can do that twice. So you could do you could heal Archeon basically 3d3 a turn.
So at the start of your hero phase, you can say that the model will chant a prayer. If you do so, one friendly model within 12 inch of this model make a prayer by rolling a dice. On a 1 to 2, it's not answered. On a 3, plus it heals d3. Go on, Liam, what you were saying, mate?
Yeah, I was going to say, I like the idea of all the chariot priests and stuff now, because it just reminds me of Total War with Wulfric the Wanderer, just like firing stuff off the back of a chariot. And it's a very Mad Max sort of theme as well. Just get loads of chariots and just mow them down.
Yeah, there's definitely some cool builds.
It's good that in the first page, War Shrines have got the priest keyword, so now they get the leader keyword, so that it helps you even more in all the missions, because there's a lot of the missions like boss leaders and behemoth. It's got the behemoth keyword as well, so a War Shrine's even more appealing now in a list in this army.
Sure. Okay, so in terms of command traits, I just want a couple of them. Bolstered by hate, that's add 2 to the general's wound characteristics. That's not shabby. Smite the unbeliever, add 2 to attack characteristics of the general. Nice and fighty. The general can chant 2 prayers. Go on, mate.
Yeah, that's fiery, or the one that you just said there, fiery, or is it
Orator? Orator, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably your best one.
Yeah. 2 prayers in the hero phase instead of 1, and they can chant the same prayer more than once. Vile. As you said, I mean, if you take that along with the blessings... Go for it, mate.
I was going to say, I'm tempted to do this army just so I can do some wacky, crazy chaos priest on the back of a chariot doing some insane mojo off the side of it, giving prayers to everybody and calling down storms all from the back of a chariot as well.
Because you love priests, don't you, Jack? Especially slaughter priests.
Yeah, slaughter priests are brilliant. Love them. Best model in the game.
Can I interact with you, Luke? No, this just all happens, and there's nothing you can do about it, Jack.
Unfortunately,
such a good mechanic.
We're referring to a couple of grudge matches along the way there that have happened in the past, but a lot of fun between these guys. And hopefully one day when this lockdown and news today, if you're wanting some idea of where we are in the real world timing, there's just been an announcement that Pfizer have come up with a vaccine. So you never know. Maybe one day. Do you think they'll prioritise wargamers in terms of who receives the vaccine?
I hope so. I'm going to start like a gov.org petition for it.
I'd say we're possibly more at risk because we tend not to leave a terribly healthy lifestyle, do we? Let's face it. So, you'd think we're up there on the high risk factor. Plus,
On the worst for that, unhealthy. All I do is eat takeaways and sit in my room.
Okay, come on, guys. Right. Do we want to talk about the battalion?
I mean, I think it's quite simple, isn't it? It's a bunch of chariots. It makes your chariot lord a bit better, gives him some more attacks and more damage, and 6s do like mortal wounds. And it gives him a command trait which, what's this? It add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by this unit. So you can pick units and give them +1 to hit, but I doubt that's going to be any better than giving him like the 2 prayers. So you can give like 2 units reroll wounds if you're Nurgle and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of a fluffy thing. If you really want to focus in on that aesthetic of having this crazy little priest on the back of a chariot, then it's a good thing to do. It's not bad, but it's not great.
Okay. Anyone else want to?
Just another note on these battalions. They've released them all as box sets, and it's quite a decent saving on that one there. I think it's like £55 or something, and you get 3 chariots.
Result. And the chariots are pretty cute, actually. I quite like those chariots.
They are really nice models, considering how old they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, guys, let's move on. So there you have it, the mysterious missing footage from our Morathi review. Hope you enjoyed it, and again, just a big shout out for Jimmy L for pointing out the missing footage. I hadn't noticed it after the final edit, so that's always good. And if you haven't seen what the hell I'm talking about, go back to our previous videos where you can see the rest of the factions. Bye all.